Hey guys, in this video we are going to look at the shared VPC of Google Cloud Platform, see how it works. This is not an in-depth overview of the networking or the gateways or anything like that. This is just how you deal with this shared VPC and see how it works. Let's look at some of the terminology that we are going to use during this video. Organization, you will hear that. Project, there are two types of projects that you can create: host project and service project. You will see what they are in upcoming slides. And then we are going to look at the shared VPC network and see why it is called shared VPC and how you can use it, right? So the terminology, the organization. So the prerequisite of creating a shared VPC is that you need to have an organization. You cannot just create a shared VPC if you sign in with your Google or gmail.com account, right? So in order for you to be able to create the shared VPC, you need to create the organization, and in order to create the organization, you either need to bring your own domain to Google Cloud, or you can buy the whole G Suite, one of those two ways. If you look at the hierarchy over here on the screen, you can see that on top you have organizations, and then inside the organization you have projects, and within the project you have resources like EC2, sorry, not EC2, but virtual machines and things like that. Sorry, I'm from AWS background, so for me I kind of get mix and match between a couple of things. Anyways, if you look at the organization, it is the root node in the GCP resource hierarchy. It is the hierarchical ancestor of project resources and the folders. GCP users are not required to have the organization resource. Like I said, you don't have to have the organization resource, but in order to create the shared VPC and use it, you must have the organization. Without having the organization, you cannot create the shared VPC. Now you can create the local VPC, which is specific to that particular project, but it's a different thing than the shared VPC. Shared VPC is something that you share with multiple projects. So the idea here is that when you create a shared VPC, you have a centralized place where you keep all your networks, your subnets, your routes and things like that, and you share these subnets and these routes and these firewall rules to other projects, so you can manage them from at one place. Now the terminology for the project that participates in the shared VPC is either a host project or the service project. The project cannot be both. It can be either host project or the service project. So now, what is the host project? A host project is the project that contains one or more shared VPC networks. So if you create a shared VPC and you say, hey, I'm creating this shared VPC in this project, that project becomes host project. Now you will not see it anywhere on the UI saying that, hey, this is the host project or anything. It is something that you have to understand. It's just a terminology saying that, hey, because this project has a shared VPC, it is a host project. And the project that you share your subnets or your shared VPC with are the service projects. So you can share your subnets, your shared VPC with multiple projects, and all those projects that you share this shared VPC with, they become your service projects. So it's a service project that is any project that participates in the shared VPC by attaching itself to the host project. Now, the terminology of shared VPC is nothing more than it's just a VPC network. So if you're coming from the AWS background, it is just a normal VPC that you create in AWS. Same thing here, you have the same VPC stuff here. Now, your shared VPC is a little different, because in AWS you cannot share your VPC with multiple accounts. You cannot share your VPC across the boundary of your account. But in Google Cloud, there is nothing like multiple accounts. So you kind of create one project which you call it in AWS terminology is your account, and then you share that project, sorry, the shared VPC of that project to multiple accounts, and that's how you create your shared account structure. And there can be multiple projects inside your organization, and you can attach them to the shared VPC. It is defined in the host project, and it is made available as a centrally shared network for the eligible resources in your project. So you have complete control over which projects do you want to share what subnets with, and that kind of gives you more control over the security, which is again on cloud is a big thing. So in order to keep your resources secure, you want to make sure that nobody is, deploying their instances or their virtual machines, in the subnets that they are not supposed to, and not making them, publicly available, right? So when you create a VPC, shared VPC or the normal VPC on Google Cloud, there are two ways you can create the subnets. You can either create auto subnets, which is kind of like when you're getting started with this, it's okay to do that, because that does not give you much control over what the subnet range is going to be, how big the subnets are going to be, and all those kind of things. And when you create a custom mode network, that's where you get more control over saying, out of all the 12 or 13 regions that Google Cloud Platform provides, out of those 13, you can only create, you only want to create subnet in those 2 or 3 regions, like US East, US West, and US Central, and nowhere else. So that kind of control, if you want, then you need to use, custom control, custom mode for the network. All right, so that's it for the slides. Let's go and look at the console on Google Cloud and see what happens. So here I'm logged in with my account, and I am on the default project. So you can see I only have one project here, which is under this organization called notyourfatherscloud.net. Stop, don't laugh at it, but it's a good name that I found. Anyway, so we are in this project. It's just a useless project, because you have to have at least one project in Google Cloud to keep your, things running, right? So it's just a default project. I just renamed it. So now let's look at how we create the shared VPC. So you go here and you say create a new project, and we are gonna name this as shared service project 1, and let's see, the ID is available, so we can go ahead and say create, and make sure that your billing is active with this, which we do. So let's go here and say take me to the IAM. Now these are the permissions that you need in order to create the VPC, so shared VPC. Compute network admin, compute network user, and organization administrator, and the project owner. Without these services, you will either, without these IAM permissions, you will have either problem creating the project, or creating the VPC, or attaching the VPC project to the shared VPC. So let's go ahead and select our project that we are going to create, as our host project. Now remember, the host project is the project where you create your shared VPC. All right, so let's go here and look at the VPC network. You can see up on top here you have plain simple VPC networks, and then you have shared VPC network here, right? So you just go and say, hey, set up a shared VPC, and it says to enable to create this shared VPC, enable the host project, select the subnets, and give the permissions. All right, let's go ahead and do that. So It says it's creating the shared VPC. Sometimes it takes a while for some of the services to get running and everything, so just gonna wait for a couple of minutes to see if things get going. A lot of errors are happening here because account is not configured and this and that and all kinds of stuff. So gonna wait for the compute engine to get ready. So while we are waiting for this, let's look at this thing called external IP addresses. So here you can reserve a static IP address that you can later go and attach to later you can go and attach it to your virtual machine. This is same as what we have in AWS called elastic IP address. It's the same thing, you know, just reserving static IP address and attach it to one of the compute instances. Firewall rules, this is where you will see that how you want to allow access on which ports, on which subnets. So here you can say allow access on port 22 from these IP addresses or this IP address range and things like that. Here you have routes, nothing here yet, but you will see that it will create the default routes for everything, and it will tell you that there is a specific route which points to 0000/0, which will be pointing to your default internet gateway. Means it will be used for the outbound traffic. And here you can create the VPC peering. We don't want to do that right now, so let's see. It's taking longer. Okay, so now we have our compute engine enabled. So let's go to VPC networks, and you can see that when you create new project, by default you get a default VPC with the subnets created in all these regions, right? Now up here you will see that it says the mode is auto, and if you drop down it says there are two modes, auto and custom, right? So auto is, like I said, when you create a VPC network and you say create the auto subnets for it, it will go ahead and create what it feels right, and you don't really have any option here saying that, hey, don't use this IP address range or anything like that. It's really not something that you want to do in the production, right? So I like to do things from the scratch. So we have this default VPC here, but let's create our own VPC, and then we designate that VPC as the shared VPC and see how it works. So you say create new VPC, and we say shared VPC. Right. So this is a shared VPC, and we say subnets automatic. If you really don't understand how the networking and subnets and work, you can use it, but since we don't want to do that, we will say this VPC, this subnet is for, let's say, project 1, right? So we say app 1 shared shared subnet, and we want to create this in US East 4. So let's say 10.0.0.0/25. This is more than enough. And if you want to create one more, just say add new subnet, app2 share subnet, and you say this will be in the region US East 4, because sometimes you want to create resources in multiple, for HA and things like that. So, and this will be 10.0.0.0/28/25. So let's keep these two, and we just go and say create. Now again, if you look at here, takes a minute or two for it to create, but trust me, it's a good thing. It is something really exciting. So let's wait for it to finish, and hopefully it will be done soon enough. There you go. So now we have two subnets created. So let's do this. Let's go here and change this, delete this, right? Now if you click here and you say delete the VPC network, say you want to delete this. If you want to delete it, go ahead and delete it. If not, you're okay. I like to keep things less and less clunky. Let's wait for it to finish. Meanwhile, so now we have created the shared subnets, right? So now how do we share these subnets with the apps, right? So before we can share them with the other projects, we need to create those projects. So we come here and we say, so now just understand the terminology. Our shared service project 1 is a host project because it is hosting a shared VPC. Now what we are going to create is a service project. So we just come here and we say this is going to be my app1 project, and that's the PID address ID. It's not for me. It is creating it, and while this is happening, let's go ahead and create another project, app2 project. And that's the project ID it is giving me. I'll take it. All right, so Now if you're worried why it was giving me that error, they're still working on things, so sometimes you will see that the error message is not really an error, it is because it is doing something goofy in there, right? So anyways, now when you create a shared VPC, it will show up in your VPC networks, so it is a good practice to name it saying that it's a shared VPC so that you don't end up deleting it, or you don't end up making changes to it when you don't want to, right? So let's go back here and we say we want to attach projects. So we say attach projects and we say attach this and attach this. Now when you come further down here, it says which subnets to share. Now you can share all the subnets that we created, or you can just share one of these. Now there is no way to say that this subnet is shared with which subnet is shared with which project, so when you share this, you technically are sharing all the subnets to all the projects. What you can do is you can modify the permissions, saying that for project 1, person X is the network administrator and only that person has rights on this particular shared VPC. I will show you where to do that. We are not going to do that, but you will see where to do that. Alright, why is it giving me these errors? Because it is waiting for the compute engine API to be enabled, and it's working on it. So while this is happening, let's go to shared service project and look at the external IP addresses. We don't have any. Look at the firewall rules. Don't really have any. Look at the routes. These are the two subnets that we created, so it gives the two routes and then it gives a default route for outbound to internet. And we don't have any VPC peering, we don't have any shared VPC. We have a shared VPC. If you go to firewall rules, pretty simple, you say create a firewall rule saying that allow SSH to my compute instances. Which network you want this one to attach to, and what is the priority, what is the ingress, is it ingress or egress? We want to keep it ingress, and we say do we want to apply this firewall rule to all the instances in the network, only to a specific subset of those instances which we can identify by tags, or we can do it specified service account can only use this. So let's do all the instances and we say allow it. For now we are gonna say allow it for all, which is really not a good practice. So what is my IP, and we are gonna say only allow from my IP address instead of from everywhere. We don't really have second source identifier, we don't want to do anything, and we are gonna say TCP colon 22. So likewise you want to create HTTP, HTTPS. If you are using Windows instances, you can create it for your RDP port. I don't know what the RDP port is, so sorry about that. But let's go and look at the app1 project, and you can see here that these are the default firewall rules that are attached there because of the default VPC in this project, which we haven't deleted yet. So let's go to VPC networks and let's delete this default VPC. We really don't like this. And we go to Add2 and we do the same thing. Let's make sure that our compute engine is initialized. Okay, it is initialized in app2 and it is initialized in app1. Perfect. So now let's go back to our project, shared service project 1, and go to the VPC network and we say shared VPC, and we say attach the projects. We want to see this guy and this guy. Now you can attach it to this guy, but then it's going to give you the error because you cannot make this project host and service. So it deleted the network from one of the app projects. Lot of red here. There is only one red here. So it is working on attaching the projects, and you can see that it attached the two projects. Now once you go here, it will show you the two subnets that we have shared because we have this checkbox here. If we remove this checkbox, it will show you the list of all the subnets, but because we only have two subnets, we just used two. Now remember, I told you that you can't specify saying which subnet can be used by which project. If you want to do that, you need to come here and you need to say modify the permission, and then you only give permission to the account or to the service account which is gonna be used by that particular project. That way, not the root account does not get the permissions. But we are not gonna do that right now. Alright, so we created the shared VPC, we shared it, we created the firewall rule to allow SSH, we looked at the routes. You have a default route going to the internet, and then you have two routes for the subnets, right? Now what happens is, this is how your IT organization or your IT department is going to create the shared service project, create the shared VPC, and share the subnets with the other projects, right? So now when I go to my F1 project and I will come here and I will say show me the VPC networks, and it's gonna say I don't have anything here. Show me the shared VPC, and it will say yep, there is a project which has shared two subnets with you. So these two subnets you can use for your virtual machines or compute instances. So let's go and say compute engine, and we say create, and let's pick US East 4 from here because that's where our subnets are, and US East 4A. One CPU is good. Let's change this guy to Ubuntu, and remember you can change your disk size from here, and you can do a lot of other things if you want to, but this is not what we are trying to do here. And you can say management disks and SSH keys and everything. Now I already have no, I do not have SSH keys here, right? So we are gonna attach the SSH key here. Is all right. So we say no management or anything. Networking, we haven't selected any network yet, so we are gonna say networks shared with me, and we'll say the networks subnets that are shared with you is app2 and app1. So because this is app1, we're gonna select the app1. IP address formal is good. IP forwarding we keep off and everything like that, and we say done. And the SSH keys, enter the key data here. So what I'm gonna do is these are my SSH keys, right? So I'm actually going to add the public key, open it with Visual Studio Code, good enough for me, copy and paste it here, and we say good, go ahead and create one for me. Now remember, we are creating this compute instance in the subnet that was shared by this project, and there is nothing in this project called VPC. So let's see if everything works. So we take the external IP and we say SSH into that, and we say good SSH minus I, and then we say IP address, and we say yes, and we are in. So we just want to make sure that we are there. You can see the host name is instance1, which is this one, and we say you can see that it goes to the internet and it is all going through the centralized shared VPC. So if I want to put a net instance over there, or if I want to put some kind of proxy settings over there, I can do all that, and everyone will start getting that, so you don't have to go to each project and make changes. And please make sure that when you use this, when you are in the production environment or QA environment, you delete those default VPCs, so that even by mistake nobody can go and create those instances which can are not in compliance with your organization's policy. So there is it for this one. If you guys have any suggestions, please let me know. Otherwise I will try to post a different other video sooner rather than later. Thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoy this. Thank you very much.